The question doesn't make sense at first. It shouldn't exist. Why would the first man to walk on the moon, a man who already cheated death in the vacuum of space, risk his life again by descending into a pitch-black cave in the Amazon rainforest? No cameras, no global broadcast. No glory waiting at the bottom, just darkness. In 1976, long after the applause had faded and the world had moved on, Neil Armstrong quietly joined an expedition into one of the most dangerous cave systems on Earth. No press, no detailed explanation, no clear reason given to the public. That silence is where the mystery begins, because this wasn't just any cave. Hidden deep in the Ecuadorian Amazon, beyond rivers that swallow boats and jungle that erases trails, lies a place the local tribes avoid even naming out loud. They call it Cueva de los Teos. A vast underground world where the air feels wrong, where sound behaves strangely, where people go in and don't always come back out. The journey to reach it is already a warning. Days of travel through choking humidity and endless green. Then the entrance appears, sudden, vertical, and unforgiving. A black wound in the earth, not sloping, not welcoming, just a sheer drop into nothing. Those who stand at the edge say the same thing. The darkness doesn't feel empty, it feels occupied. For generations, indigenous stories have circled this place. Stories of tunnels that run impossibly straight. Of chambers so vast they swallow torchlight. Of something old beneath the ground, older than memory, older than human history. The elders warned explorers not because the cave was dangerous, but because it was wrong. And yet people kept going. Early expeditions returned shaken. Some returned injured. Some didn't return at all, and the ones who survived often refused to talk, not out of pride, out of fear, as if speaking about what they'd seen might invite it back into their lives. Then the rumors began, whispers of tunnels that look carved, not eroded. Of walls too smooth, angles too precise, of metallic objects hidden deep underground, flat plates etched with symbols no one could read. A so-called metal library, sealed away from the surface world, containing knowledge not meant to be found. Most people dismissed it as myth, until governments started paying attention. Until military-backed expeditions formed, until millions of dollars were spent mapping a cave most scientists claimed was just another geological formation. And then, without announcement, Neil Armstrong arrived, not as a figurehead, not as a tourist, but as a participant, a man known for caution, for understatement, for never exaggerating the unknown. A man who had already seen Earth from a place no human was ever meant to stand. What could possibly pull someone like that into a place like this? What could exist underground that space itself couldn't satisfy? Because whatever the answer is, it wasn't meant for the public. The expedition ended. Reports were thin, access to the cave tightened, and Armstrong never explained why it mattered, only that it did. Deep beneath the Amazon, something waited long enough to draw the most famous explorer in human history downward into silence. And this was only the surface. The jungle swallows the sound of your footsteps. Leaves, vines, branches, everywhere alive and threatening. The entrance yawns, a black chasm that refuses to reveal its depth. One wrong move here, one slip, and the fall is fatal. Darkness wraps around you like a living thing. Air is thick, humid. Heavy with the smell of earth, water, and decay, it presses in on your chest. Inside, the cave becomes a labyrinth. Vertical drops disappear into shadows. Narrow passages force the explorers to squeeze, crawl, and sometimes climb blindly. The walls are slick, uneven, and dotted with pools that reflect nothing. Strange echoes follow you, taunting, shifting, playing tricks. And it isn't just the terrain that kills. Snakes, spiders, insects, venomous, silent, waiting. One bite could mean death hours from help, but it's not only the physical danger that terrifies. Indigenous legends speak of the Teos, beings who predated humanity, who constructed halls and chambers that defy natural explanation. They say the cave is alive, watched, protected. Warnings passed down for generations. Go too deep and the cave will not let you leave. Early explorers pushed forward. Some returned with injuries that left their bodies scarred. Some didn't return at all. Those who survived told stories in hushed whispers. Walls too smooth, tunnels perfectly aligned, metallic objects that shouldn't exist. And then came the most sensational rumor, a metal library. Plates of unknown alloy, etched with symbols and diagrams that no one could interpret. Knowledge buried so deep that it threatened the way humans understood their own history. Every new expedition escalated the stakes. Each failure deepened the mystery. And yet, Armstrong and his team continued. Because if even half of the rumors were true, the cave was no longer just a natural formation. It was a vault, a repository of something forbidden, something the world was never meant to see. Neil Armstrong had faced death before, but this was different. Space had its dangers, yes, but here there were no protocols to rescue you. No orbiting stations, no mission control. One misstep, one misjudgment, and the jungle would claim you. And still he went. The 1976 expedition was unlike any other. Military personnel, scientists, survival experts, every skill required for human endurance in extreme conditions. Equipment carefully planned, routes mapped, supplies calculated, money, manpower, and secrecy rivaled some small-scale wars. Armstrong didn't just observe, he descended into the black, into the unknown. Why him? Not for publicity, not for adventure. Armstrong was cautious, measured, disciplined. He was someone the world trusted to tell the truth, someone who didn't exaggerate even when facts surpassed imagination. His presence alone lent credibility to whispers that until then had been dismissed as legend. And what he saw inside, he never described in public. The expedition concluded, reports were sparse, and access to the cave tightened. Only cryptic statements remained. The expedition was important, but no explanation was offered. The world, for the most part, moved on, but those who knew, who glimpsed even the edges of the story, understood. This was no ordinary cave. The dangers were not only physical, they were existential. The cave seemed alive, a place that judged who entered. The deeper you went, the more the rules of the surface world seemed to vanish. Armstrong, a man who had walked on the moon, found himself humbled here. Fear, awe, and a sense of incomprehensible history coalesced in a place where light, time, and human understanding no longer mattered. And the chilling thought remained for those left behind. If even a mind like his, trained, courageous, logical, was unsettled by what he saw, what truly lay in the depths? What scared even him? What you think you know about caves, about history, about human achievement, it all begins to crumble here. Because the evidence inside Cueva de los Teos doesn't fit with what science can explain. Tunnels run straight for hundreds of meters, impossible for natural erosion to produce. Walls are cut with precision that predates any known tool. Angles so perfect, corridors so symmetrical that even modern engineering would struggle to replicate them. And then there are the metallic plates, sheets of an unknown alloy, etched with symbols, diagrams, perhaps knowledge long lost to humanity. Explorers reported anomalies, sounds that shouldn't exist. Echoes that seem to respond to your presence. Areas where compasses spun violently, where instruments refused to function. And yet the public record remains sparse. Conflicting reports, sealed documents, and sudden cancellations of further research. Why was access restricted? What did those in power not want the world to see? Then consider the human element. Why Neil Armstrong, not the boldest adventurer, not a thrill-seeker? He was chosen for his resilience, his judgment, his credibility. Someone who could bear witness to the inexplicable without embellishment. Someone the world would trust. And still he descended. Still he faced the cave on its own terms. And what if the legends were right? What if the Teos, the beings, the architects, the custodians of this place truly existed? What if this wasn't a human creation but a discovery of something far older? Something deliberately hidden from our world, from our understanding. The twist is in the silence. The silence of Armstrong, of the surviving expedition members, of governments that suddenly lost interest in exploration. Perhaps the cave wasn't a challenge to be conquered. Perhaps it was a secret, a warning, a record too dangerous for humanity to handle. Maybe Armstrong didn't go to explore. Maybe he went to confirm, because once you step into the cave, the rules change. The deeper you go, the more your understanding of history, of technology, of possibility, becomes uncertain. Every etched plate, every precise corridor, every chamber too large, too deliberate to be natural, whispers a single terrifying question. What if everything we've been taught about human history is only half the truth? And what if the rest of it is buried beneath the Amazon, waiting, watching, and judging those bold or foolish enough to enter? The cave doesn't merely hold objects, it holds knowledge, and knowledge is power, knowledge is dangerous. And sometimes knowledge is the reason the world remains silent. The deeper you descend, the less human you feel. the more the cave reminds you that humans are visitors, intruders, insignificant shadows in a place older than memory. Somewhere below, the truth waits, and it does not care who you are. The human mind fears what it cannot categorize. Not monsters, not death, not the dark, but the unknown. The idea that everything you've been taught, everything you thought you understood about your world might be incomplete, that beneath your feet history itself is hidden. The cave remains closed today, not because it is empty, not because explorers failed, but because what lies within is too disruptive, too dangerous, too transformative. The metal library, the chambers, the impossibly precise tunnels, they are not anomalies. They are evidence that we have only scratched the surface of human or pre-human achievement, that perhaps the Earth itself hides knowledge we are not ready to understand. Armstrong's legacy takes on a new dimension here. The man who stepped onto the moon did not stop at the edges of human achievement. He ventured into a darkness no light could penetrate, guided only by courage, curiosity, and discipline. He touched a frontier not in space but beneath the Earth. And unlike the moon, this frontier did not welcome spectators. It demanded silence, it demanded respect, it demanded secrecy. What did he see? What did the expedition find that warranted suppression? No one can say for certain. The lack of information is louder than any report. Silence becomes a presence, a living reminder that some discoveries are not for human eyes. And for those who have glimpsed the edge of the truth, the world above feels smaller, emptier, and far less certain than before. History is a story we tell ourselves, but beneath the Amazon, in the Cueva de los Teos, that story may have an entirely different author, one who predates humanity and has long since forgotten that we exist. And the unsettling realization settles in. Perhaps we are the intruders, the trespassers, the ones risking everything to glimpse secrets that were never meant to be ours. Some doors aren't locked to keep people out, they are sealed to keep something in. Something that waits, patient and unyielding until curiosity outweighs caution. Imagine standing at the edge of a vast chamber where the walls hum with silence, a place where shadows seem to move on their own, and the air carries a weight heavier than stone. You hear dripping water, distant echoes, but no wind, no life, only the presence of something impossible. Expeditions tried to map it, to measure it, to rationalize it. But the deeper they went, the less the tools worked, the more the cave seemed to resist documentation. Instruments failed, compasses spun. Radio signals vanished. And the human mind, conditioned to expect order, began to unravel in the face of geometries that should not exist, and metals that should not exist, and history that could not belong to any known timeline. Armstrong's descent remains an enigma. A man known for reason and composure walked into this living paradox and emerged silent. He spoke of importance of caution, but never revealed what shook him. And perhaps he understood something we do not, that some truths are too vast, too alien, too powerful for the world above to comprehend. Consider the corridors that stretch beyond the reach of light, the chambers carved with precision, with purpose, with intent. The metallic plates that bear symbols older than recorded history. The presence that watches silently, letting humanity trespass only to remind us of our limits. It is a place of awe, yes, but also fear, the kind of fear that stays with you long after you leave. Not because of danger, but because of revelation. That the Earth holds secrets that dwarf human ambition, secrets that could rewrite everything we know about civilization, technology, even life itself. And when you leave, the jungle resumes its silence. The entrance disappears behind you. The darkness swallows the explorer's footprints. The world above continues unaware, yet below the cave waits. And you can't help but wonder, if Armstrong returned, what else did he see? What knowledge did he carry quietly inside him? Some doors aren't locked to keep people out, they are sealed to keep something in. And somewhere deep beneath the Amazon the cave waits, patient, watching, silent, until curiosity calls again. The jungle reclaims everything, footprints vanish, voices fade, equipment rusts, but the cave remembers. Every human who has entered leaves an imprint not on stone but on memory, etched in fear, awe and confusion. Armstrong was no exception. His presence lent credibility to whispers that had long been dismissed. Yet the truth of what was found, what was witnessed, remained unspoken. There are hints in fragments, sketches of tunnels, partial diagrams, notes in journals that were never published. Explorers spoke in riddles in careful language, as if acknowledging the cave's reality aloud might provoke it. They referred to angles that were mathematically impossible, chambers that defied physical laws, and metals that reflected more than light, something intangible, something ancient. Local legends intertwined with modern reports. The Teos were said to have built corridors for beings not of this world. Stories described guardians, entities that weren't visible but whose presence was undeniable. Sounds echoed unnaturally, shadows moved against the grain of light, and those who lingered too long experienced vertigo, hallucinations, or an unshakable sense that the cave had measured them and found them lacking. Armstrong, the man who faced the void of space, confronted this. And for him it was not a thrill, it was recognition that the universe held mysteries far more immediate, far more dangerous than the distant stars. Something within the cave demanded respect, secrecy, and silence, something powerful enough to stop entire expeditions from ever returning to continue. And the unnerving thought remains, if a man of Armstrong's intellect and courage could not fully comprehend it, what hope does the rest of humanity have? Cueva de los Teos is no ordinary cavern, it is a sentinel, a gatekeeper. A repository of truths humanity may not be ready to face. Every corridor, every chamber, every metallic plate serves a purpose beyond our understanding. The cave watches, it waits, and it tests those who dare enter. Expeditions come armed with technology, logic, and bravery. Yet the cave seems to absorb these tools, rendering instruments useless and rational thought fragile. Compasses spin, lights fail, radios cut out, maps prove futile. And then the explorers begin to experience the subtle psychological effects. A creeping doubt, a sense of being observed, a creeping realization that the cave itself may be alive, or at least aware. Some corridors stretch endlessly, defying measurement. Some chambers open into voids that the mind cannot fully process. Metallic plates etched with symbols of unknown origin seem to pulse under the eyes of those who look too long. And the deeper you go, the more the boundary between reality and imagination dissolves. Armstrong and his team entered this living enigma. They emerged, silent and changed. Their reports were sparse, incomplete, carefully coded. The world never learned what lay in the deepest chambers, or why the cave demanded such secrecy. The knowledge, if revealed, could reshape human understanding of history, technology, and perhaps even the origins of civilization itself. And the haunting question lingers, was Armstrong seeking knowledge or merely confirming something humanity was never meant to know? Because some doors are not just barriers, they are guardians, they are tests, and the cave keeps its secrets, waiting patiently for the next curious soul to arrive, and perhaps to disappear. The Amazon swallows all evidence, but beneath its canopy the cave waits, silent, immense, indifferent, and the story is far from over. Inside Cueva de los Teos the darkness feels deliberate. It is not just absence of light, it is pressure, weight, expectation. Explorers speak of an invisible presence, a consciousness that seems to measure every movement, every hesitation. Shadows curve strangely, echoes respond too precisely, and the air itself seems aware. Those who have ventured deepest describe moments when the cave itself seemed to breathe, to shift. Walls that should have been solid appear subtly altered. Metallic plates emit an almost imperceptible vibration, as if alive, resonating with something far older than any human civilization. Notes from early expeditions hint at symbols that glowed faintly, responding to touch or proximity, but no one could decipher their meaning. Armstrong's silence becomes more chilling in this context. The most rational man to step on the moon, accustomed to calculations, physics, and unyielding logic, confronted a phenomenon that could not be quantified, measured, or explained. The cave resisted understanding. It demanded submission to its rules, to its geometry, to its knowledge. And then there is the fear, not fear of injury or death, those are predictable, but fear of recognition. Fear that the cave sees you for what you are and that your presence may matter to it. The deeper you go, the more human certainty erodes. Maps, tools, courage, all are useless. Only intuition, endurance, and the willingness to witness without expectation allow survival. Some corridors stretch beyond comprehension. Some chambers open into voids that twist perception. And in the deepest corners, metallic plates carved with unknown symbols suggest knowledge stolen from time itself. Explorers emerge changed, silent, haunted, carrying secrets they cannot share. The unsettling truth lingers: the cave is not merely a place, it is a presence, and it waits, patient, watching, unforgiving. The world above remains oblivious, trees sway, rivers flow, birds sing. Yet below, beneath the thick Amazon canopy, Cueva de los Teos endures. It has watched generations pass, civilizations rise and fall, and explorers come and go. Armstrong came, one of the most celebrated humans of the 20th century, and still the cave kept its secrets. Why was he there? What did he see that made even a man trained to confront the unknown so silent? Some claim he glimpsed chambers that predated recorded history. Others whisper that the metallic plates contained knowledge of civilizations that never existed, or of technology far beyond comprehension. None of it was ever confirmed. None of it was ever revealed. The cave is patient. It does not reveal its truths freely. Those who seek answers are drawn into its depths, confronted with fear, awe, and disbelief. And then they return, or sometimes they do not. History is left incomplete. Humanity is left guessing. The unsettling thought lingers long after the last torchlight fades. Perhaps the greatest discoveries are not in the stars, nor in distant galaxies. Perhaps they lie beneath our feet, hidden in darkness and waiting for those who dare. Some doors aren't locked to keep people out, they are sealed to keep something in. And somewhere deep beneath the Amazon, Cueva de los Teos waits. Silent, patient, watching, until curiosity calls again. The question remains, and it is a question that may never be answered. What did Neil Armstrong see in the darkness that even the first man on the moon could not, or would not, reveal? Decades have passed, and Cueva de los Teos remains a shadow in history. The cave's entrance is hidden, obscured by jungle and secrecy. Expeditions stopped, governments grew silent. And yet the whispers never died. Scholars, explorers, and conspiracy theorists piece together fragments, diagrams, second-hand accounts, cryptic photographs, each hinting at something extraordinary beneath the forest floor. Armstrong's involvement fuels speculation. Why did a man who had walked on the moon risk the unknown once more? Some claim he sought proof of a civilization older than recorded history. Others whisper of technologies or knowledge deliberately hidden from humanity. And while no evidence has ever been made public, the mere fact that such an acclaimed figure participated lends the cave a credibility that cannot be dismissed. The Teos legends add another layer: beings that predate humankind, guardians of knowledge too dangerous to reveal. Could the metallic plates really contain instructions, maps, or histories lost to time? The unanswered questions grow heavier with each retelling. The cave becomes less a place on a map and more an idea, a symbol of human curiosity confronting its own limits. And the psychological impact on those who entered is evident. Survivors speak in vague, careful terms. Memories of corridors, chambers, symbols, and shadows haunt them decades later. Some refuse to discuss their experiences at all, as if words themselves might summon consequences. The silence of Armstrong and others becomes almost purposeful, a warning, a boundary, a testament to what should remain unseen. The more one examines the story, the more it fractures reality. Science cannot explain it. Archaeology cannot classify it. Yet the details resist dismissal, each anomaly layering doubt upon skepticism. Perhaps the greatest mystery is not what lies within the cave, but why humanity was ever allowed a glimpse at it. Some doors aren't locked to keep people out. They are sealed to keep something in, and so the cave waits, patient, immense, unmoving, beneath thick vegetation, beneath centuries of human forgetfulness, beneath the very ground we walk on every day. It waits not for treasure, not for fame, not for conquest, but for curiosity. That irresistible, dangerous force that drives humans to seek what should remain hidden. What did Armstrong see in the darkness? What did he confirm? And what did he leave behind, unspoken, to protect the world, or perhaps to protect himself? We may never know. The knowledge, if it exists, lies dormant, waiting for the next daring or foolish soul to descend. Imagine standing at the edge of the cave, the jungle silent around you. A single step forward and everything you thought you knew about reality, history, and civilization could shift. The air is heavy. Shadows ripple, a metallic gleam catches your eye in the darkness, etched symbols glowing faintly, hinting at truths older than memory. And then you realize some questions are not meant to be answered. Some doors are not meant to be opened. Some discoveries are too vast, too powerful, too dangerous to be revealed. Cueva de los Teos does not care about explorers. It does not care about fame, science, or curiosity. It exists, it waits. And perhaps one day it will demand another witness. Until then, it remains a silent sentinel beneath the Amazon, guarding secrets older than humanity, reminding us of the fragile limits of understanding, and whispering a question we may never have the courage to answer. What did Neil Armstrong see in the darkness that even the first man on the moon could not, or would not, reveal? And the silence echoes.